Welcome to Market Insights. Today we are tackling a topic that remains at the center of the global discussions, US-China relations. My guest today is David Gibbons, who spent 12 years working and living in China. With first-hand experience and deep understanding of the region, he brings unique perspectives on how shifting US policies have impacted the global markets and businesses. David says he cannot trust America anymore. Strong words, huh? Given the unpredictability of the US policies, especially in trade and international relations, what does this mean for China? What does this mean for our global industry? David joins me online today. Hi, David. How are you? Welcome.
Hello, Maggie. Nice to see you again. We haven't been working day to day with each other for a little while now, so a couple of months. So this is a nice opportunity to catch up with you again.
Yes. So please tell me, what do you mean when you say you cannot trust America anymore?
Yeah, well, I guess it comes down to the fact that in the last 6-8 weeks or so that we realised that there's a lot of uncertainty. We're living in unpredictable times, and unpredictable times delivers fear or lack of trust. We see that on the stock exchange. We see that with, if you've been a previous ally of the United States, you don't know really anymore where you may lie. You may actually be at odds with the United States' new policy. So I guess all of this uncertainty brings fear and, in my case, a lack of trust. I don't know if I can trust America at the moment. I don't know what it's going to do. So new relationships have to be built. Do I no longer trust America? Well, they've been an ally. I'm an Australian. They've been an ally, of ours and us of them for a long time. But now, we've got to completely reevaluate that. Are we a friend? Are we an enemy? Or are we a competitor? I mean, where are we now? We all have to renegotiate the relationship, I think.
Yes. So are you pointing the finger at Donald Trump?
That's a good question. Some would immediately say yes, and others would say no. Well, he's doing what he promised to do. He was going to bring change, and that's true. Donald Trump, promised that he was going to change things. That was his platform going into the election. America could no longer start bailing people out domestically or internationally. Now, one thing I will say about Trump is that he's a disruptor. Now, he's the kind of guy who throws a grenade into the room, shuts the door, and boom, and then opens the door to see what's happened as a result. Some of the world's problems have been around for decades, and many new leaders approach those very same problems and try to solve them the same way as what has been done before, expecting that there'll be a different outcome. Trump has basically said, look, we've tried that. We've got to do something different. So, yes, he's a disruptor. So will he really claim Palestine, Greenland, Panama, for example, for the United States? I don't know, but he's got the whole world reacting towards, there's grenade he's thrown into the room. Maybe he will, maybe he won't, but he's going to try something different. That's the way he works. Now, Maggie, as you know, our industry is no stranger to disruption. I mean, I became a cartridge remanufacturer 35 years ago, and I disrupted my market by providing a choice for my customers, something different. The OEMs didn't like it, and the OEMs have not enjoyed the disruption caused by the aftermarket. So we in the aftermarket, we know about disruption. We've been doing it for decades.
So how do you think Donald Trump will manage the relation between China and the US?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, we don't really know. But you can be sure of one thing: he's not going to do the same thing as what US policy has been dictating up till now. Now, the US-China relationship, apart from being complex, is very, very important. Both countries actually really need each other. So these tariffs and supply chain restrictions, yes, they're going to continue. It's a bit like, these countries beating their chest. They're going to try and be tough at the negotiation table. And Trump is a businessman, so he's going to go for tougher negotiations. So we can expect that there may be, Maggie, a change of policy. For example, will Trump back Taiwan, over this independence and democracy issues and all the rest of it? Will he continue with the policy that's been used before by the US? Or is this domestic issue about Taiwan something that he's not really interested in? He's not wanting a war or any of these sort of things. What he really wants is to deal with the trade deficit that the US has with China. Now, I don't know if you realise this, but the US has a huge debt to China. I think it's about $300 billion just in 2024. I think he wants to deal with that. And globally, the US has a trade deficit of over $1 million trillion deficit. On the other hand, China has just recorded a trade surplus of about $1 trillion. So US, 1 trillion deficit, China, 1 trillion surplus, deficit surplus. Trump doesn't want a deficit. He wants a surplus for the country. So he's probably going to be more likely to negotiate with China to try and change this around. And if there's a different way of doing that, I think he may do that instead of just necessarily backing Taiwan. I don't think Taiwan can expect that US is going to come to their rescue or support or whatever in their disagreements with Beijing. See, if America is going to remain dominant, it has to turn around its deficit and it's got to start making trade surpluses. So that's the bottom line.
So will there be an impact on our global industry?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The printing and imaging supplies industry thrives on global supply chains. One thing where I think Trump is wrong is that he thinks now that all the supply chains and everything that are needed must exist in the United States. So he's cutting off allies that have been supplying, in our case in Australia, aluminium and steel and those sorts of things, because he's going to want to be able to do that domestically. The world has become a global village, Maggie.
Yes.
With supply chains come from every different country. For example, I can show you this pencil here. This pencil has an eraser, and that comes from Indonesia or somewhere like that. Where does the paint come from? Maybe the United States. The metal here, the wood inside, the lead here that's inside. All of these come from different countries. We're a global village, all putting this pencil together to sell it to me at the local supermarket for just a few cents. And the world has made that pencil. It's the same thing in our global industry as well. There are no toner manufacturers in the United States anymore that can manufacture toners for desktop printers. So I really worry about the aftermarket, particularly the remanufacturing industry in America. They rely on imports of chips from overseas, toners from overseas, components from overseas, inks. They don't necessarily manufacture those in the United States. They import them, and many of them are coming from China. Many of them. So if there's going to be this trade war, this is going to really threaten the remanufacturing industry, I believe, in the United States. Then of course, take companies like US companies like HP. They were banned from selling their printers directly into Russia. It helped companies like Panther and others from other countries, Korea and Japan, to be able to sell those printers in that country. But it didn't help HP. And that has caused a whole lot of tension. But now we don't know if HP can now sell printers back into Russia because US policy has changed. So what does all of that mean? We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. And will companies like Raven in the United States start reinvesting back into the desktop printing market? I don't think so. They're struggling now with their current markets, wide format markets and other markets, the check printing and that sort of thing, which uses the microtoner. I don't see in a declining market any toner manufacturer wanting to invest in supplying toners for desktop printers such as as HP. So I think there's a lot that's got to be sorted out here.
So putting it all together, what is your key takeaway message?
I guess we've got to look beyond geopolitics. That's probably my key message. We still are a global village. Globalization is still important. We need to look at, yes, the threats, but let's look at the opportunities that can be there and work on those, particularly as an industry. We're torn apart as an industry between the US and China in particular, but in other parts of the world as well. We need to remain agile and forward-thinking, looking at opportunities and ways to thrive as an industry, particularly those who are involved in remanufacturing. There's still huge opportunities there.
Thank you, David, for sharing your valuable insights. I bet some will agree with you and others will not. This is an evolving situation with far-reaching consequences. For those watching, what are your thoughts on the future relations between China and the US? Let us know in the comments below.